This is Yogi, sit, and this is Yogi's roadmap to success. Yogi being a Wheaton, he is a herding breed, and he likes to give kisses. So when he kisses you, you can use that passive training and say kisses or smoochies. Every time he kisses you on his own, you just put it in context. We'll talk about passive training here in a minute. So he's a herding breed, and there's some young kids that come and visit, and also like if they're young kids at a dog park or something like that, he's starting to nip at them at their heels if they move and run around really fast. We're going to set up a follow-up session where we can actually have the kids come over so we can work on that specific thing. But it is genetics. Kisses. Sit. More passive training. Yeah, I promise we'll talk about it. So basically, part of it is genetics. Part of it is probably a lack of exercise. Part of it is probably a little confusion about his position in the house. He gets walked actually more than most of my clients, but sometimes there are days where it's too hot or it's raining or whatever, we don't walk him. So I went through some creative forms of exercise, doggy stairmaster, using the laser. Another one we didn't talk about, but that you can use is scent games. Scent games is when he's outside, you hide some treats around. So if this is the leg of the couch and the dog's over there, I just put a treat right down there. And I don't say anything to him. When he comes in, he's like, I smell chicken liver. And his nose starts helping him find it. Well, the dog's nose controls 60% of their brain. And it's very stimulating for them. And if he earns that affection, then he feels a boost of self-esteem and confidence. So it's a nice way to exercise your dog without actually being, and just you can Google scent games. There's a whole bunch of different ways you can do it. A lot of it will talk about cadavers and search and rescue dogs and all that, but just hiding some treats. Just don't hide them underneath like carpet. Sometimes they go through the carpet to get it. So you just want to go around the corner and find it. But walks are a great way to exercise them as well. We're going to have sit. We're going to have Hunter come back, and Hunter's going to work with you and teach you how to walk with a loose leash. But exercising him, increasing his exercise in short little bursts sprinkled throughout the day is going to be very beneficial. So remember, dogs exercise is about at best every 3 to 4 hours. Dogs sleep on average dog his size probably sleeps close to 16 hours a day, crash. And so when he's asleep, he's recharging his batteries. And he's ready to go, and then he sleeps and recharges his batteries. So it's up and down all day long. So remember, the first time, max him out with an empty stomach and count each down up as 1. And then figure out what his maximum number of down-ups is, and then you want to exercise him 50 to 75% of that number. So I'm guessing his number is probably going to be about the 20 to 40 range, something like that. But 5 minutes on the stairs is equivalent to like a 20 or 30-minute walk. But you can do it inside when there's ice or snow or it's too hot out. All right, so and then get a laser and see if he'll try to use a laser. Just make sure not a lot of distractions. Okay, so we also talked about rules. He really doesn't have any rules, and one of the guardians actually who's filming this was like, no rules right away. Most of the time it takes people a while to figure that out. So basically, dogs go through life probing, waiting to determine where boundaries and limits are. Children probe to see what they can get. Dogs are probing to see where the edge is. They're going to come back and circle around and test again. Are you consistent? Dogs learn through repetition, consistency, and good timing. You have 3 seconds to correct or reward the dog for them to have the ability to make that connection. But even if it's in that 3-second window, it has to be repeated consistently over and over again. A lot of people think that breaking a rule is a way to reward a dog, and it's very confusing for dogs. Confusion very often leads to frustration, which often leads to stress. Pretty much all aggression comes with stress. I do not think he's an aggressive dog. I think he has some guard or herding dog tendencies, which we saw when we were practicing that video, the video above. But I think that he's just trying to contribute to the group, but he doesn't quite know what his group wants him to do. And so when I asked them, they really had difficulty and most people don't really give their dog a job, and so it's hard for them to know what to do and what not to do. So I like to flip the leader-follower dynamic by incorporating some rules so the dog sees us acting like a leader every time we enforce a rule. So I'm going to run through the rules real quickly. If you have any questions on these, please message me. The clients who are watching this. If anybody else, you can hire me, and I'm happy to come by and give you all the detail in person. So not being allowed on the furniture. The bed, since the bed is something that guardians really don't want to give up, I would say he's only allowed on the bed upstairs with an invitation. So if he jumps up, we're going to pull out a treat, show him we have a treat, throw it on the floor. When he gets down and gets it, we're going to put it in context and say the word off. And at that point, he's not allowed to come back on the furniture. Now, if he jumps back up, don't keep on throwing the treat, because then he's just going to jump up to jump down to get the treat. Let me know if that's the case when I come back, and I can show you some tricks for that, or how to have him have a special place, which is something that actually I forgot to go over. So when I come back for that, make sure I show you how to create a place for the dog in the kitchen, so we don't have to have him following your helper around every time she's cooking. So now we're on the furniture for at least 66 days, really 3 months, or as long as the problem's still going on, up. And so usually it's like set about 3 to 4 or 5 months. And then after that, it's up with an invitation. It's a one-time pass and only for good behavior. So invited him up here and start growling, he'd have to get down. Now, if he's growling at one of the children that come and visit, don't push him down on the couch towards them. That might create a problem. But it's if he gets up on the furniture with an invitation and then he goes and gets a drink of water, when he comes back, he would need another invite to get back on the couch because it's the human's couch. The humans are just nice enough to share it with the dog. And the reason for this is the higher a dog sits, the more rank or status they have. Sitting here says we are peers, and if we are peers, then listening to us is optional. And I think that's part of the problem here. So another rule that we have, crash. The word for lay down, by the way. The other rule we have to sit before we let him in or out the door. I go to the door and I say sit once. If he doesn't sit within 3 seconds, I sit down near the door, make sure he's seated, and wait 1 minute. Ask your personal assistant, give you a 1 minute timer. After 1 minute, go back to the door and command him again, only one time. Remember, the more you say it, the less you mean it. So say sit once. If he doesn't sit this time, I'll walk away and sit down for 2 minutes. Next time I walk away and sit down for 4 minutes, then for 8 minutes, and so on. Keep double the length of time, and eventually when you go to the door and say sit, and don't ask, can you sit? No, I cannot. Sit. 1, 2, 3. And if he doesn't, then you walk away. But as soon as he does sit, fly that door open as soon as you possibly can. So he's like, whoa, what do I have back here? I sit down, the door flies open. I must have eaten a remote control or something like that. Yeah, we're conditioning you that sitting at the door is a great way to get the door to open. Eventually you do it in both directions, and I would do it every door in the house if there are other doors or areas that are closed. Other rules, if you're going out the door, he shouldn't go out the door in front of you, shouldn't go up and down the stairs. I went through with the guardian how to, really it's just if you're walking up the stairs and he passes you, whoever's in front is in charge. So and don't do this when you're going to go to bed, because then you're going to be frustrated. You have to come back down here, as I explained in a sec. So if you're going to go to bed in a half an hour, get up and start walking upstairs, and as soon as he races takes 1 step ahead of you, silently turn around, come back downstairs, and watch a little TV. You're not going for a half an hour anyways, so you're setting him up for success. And he's going to get up there like, where did we go? And he comes back downstairs. I thought we were going upstairs. Then you try again, and it'll take a number of times before I realize as soon as I pass the human turns around and goes back downstairs. So we're not chastising or telling the dog. We're just saying through our actions, once you take the leadership role, I'm not interested in doing it. After a while, he'll follow you all the way up the stairs. Okay, shouldn't be allowed. Another one is eating. That is the most important activity for dogs, is eating. So before we feed him, we need to eat something first, because dogs eat in the order of their rank. Doesn't have to be a real meal. 5 bites of something will suffice, and it cannot be smoothie or coffee. They don't understand liquids as nourishment. So grab a chip. If you don't want to eat a lot, eat a chip in 5 tiny bites. Then give him permission to eat. When he takes his first bite of food, use passive training, which I promise I will talk about, and come up with your favorite dish. So maybe call it lasagna, or cookie, or meatball, or whatever you want. Maybe have one of the grandkids come up with a funny name for that. And so every time for 3 months he takes a bite of food, you say meatball. After a while, meatball means I get to go eat food. Because it's such an important activity, make sure that whoever's feeding him eats something first. Then he gets permission to eat after you. And if there's any remaining food, pick it up and dump it empty. But it's important to have the empty bowl on the ground so he recognizes it's empty. Let me see. So those are some examples of rules. I also don't like the dogs within 7 feet of anybody who's eating or cooking food in the kitchen. And like I said, I'll come back and we'll work on teaching him to go to a specific place in the kitchen. But someone is giving him some people food sometimes. So we can't give him any more people food, because that confuses him into thinking if we're eating a sandwich, we give him a little bit. We think we're giving him a little bit of love, but then he's going to want all your sandwich. And it really, you have a leader-follower dynamic issue in this house, and that will muddy the waters and confuse him. And we want to just make the waters crystal clear, and so he understands exactly where he's at. So no more people food. All right, so those are examples of rules. We also went over ways to add structure. And I accomplish this through really 2 things one of them is really called petting with a purpose. So if he comes up and jumps up on a human and the human pets him, anything a dog is doing when you pet it is what you're specifically amplifying. So you're telling the dog jumping up on me is a great way to ask me for attention. So when he comes home, if he's excited, just ignore him and wait for him to settle down. When he's settled, you start reaching for him, he'll start wiggling, pull your arm back, and don't chastise him. Just go about your business. So it's what I kind of tried to show the guardians right when I first came in, is what we're saying is when you're calm and balanced, you're very attractive to me, I want to pet you. As soon as you get excited, I lose all interest and I step out of your reach. So when you come home, if he's all excited, and his favorite guardian just walked in, one of his favorite guardians, I should say, don't want to get in trouble. But basically, if he jumps up on you, that's a way of claiming us, and that can create some confusion as well. So we're just not going to engage or pet the dog when he's excited. We're going to wait for him to settle himself down. And then once he does, then we can pet him, and we're going to pet under the chin. So if we're petting with a purpose, what we're going to do is if he comes up and nudges you, he's telling you what to do. That's a leader's quality, is to tell. So what you do is if you follow his order, you're telling him, yeah, you're the boss of me. So what we do instead is when he nudges you, you give him a counter order and tell him to sit. If he does sit within 3 seconds, pet him under his chin and say the word sit and only the word sit. Remember, a proud dog is his nose in the air, and petting here facilitates that. If he doesn't sit within 3 seconds, lean back, pull out your Men's Health, read about the mystery muscle behind back pain, and spend a little bit of time doing that. Show him that the world does not revolve around me. If he doesn't sit and I say sit again and again and again and again, after a while he's like, I sit when I want to sit. So you sit when I'd like to give you my attention. I'd like you to put you at the top of my list. I want to pet you. In order for me to pet you, you have to do the smallest thing you can do as a dog and sit. And if you can't be bothered to sit, I can't be bothered to pet you. After a while, what will happen is the dog will recognize, I'm not getting any of these pets anymore. But every time I sit, which we're going to talk about passive training, they're petting me. So what will happen is the dog will start coming and sitting in front of you to prepay for the attention. And when he does that, make sure you pet him at least once, to as many times as you want, and say just the word sit. Not even good sit, just sit. So after a while, like I said, he'll start sitting to prepay for attention. And we call that manding or learning to mand. Now, I was explaining this to a woman in Santa Monica, and she had a little Bichon sitting next to her on the couch, and she's petting her dog. She goes, I have a question for you. I said, okay, I'm going to ask you to stop petting your dog real quick. She goes, okay. But, I like petting dogs. That's one of the reasons I got a dog. Why can't I, I don't understand why I have to ask my dog this. You're petting your dog again. I'm sorry. That's all right. Just hold off on petting your dog until we get done with this. She goes, okay. But I also recently was diagnosed with high blood pressure, and one of the things my doctor said that petting dogs can actually help me feel relaxed. You're petting your dog again 3 times in 15 seconds of me asking her not to pet her dog and her intending not to pet her dog. She involuntarily reached over and petted her own dog. We don't realize how often we do it. So I have a watchword for this. I call it paycheck, because I consider petting a dog our way of paying. So if somebody comes to the room and sees that I'm petting the dog and the dog's standing and says paycheck to me, if I argue with that person, no, you missed it, I asked the dog to do something and then you came in the room and the dog was still standing or stood up when you came in, the dog's like, well, he's on one page, and I can be on my page too. So instead, if somebody says paycheck, even if I did it right, I stop petting the dog, I tell the dog to sit. When it sits, I pet it on his chin, say sit, and I say, actually, when you flush the toilet, he stood up, and I continued petting him, and David said it's a lot. But thank you for reminding me, because I often do forget to pet without a purpose. We don't realize how often we do it. If you get in a habit of petting with a purpose, every time you pet your dog, 3 important things happen. Number 1, the dog gets a boost of self-esteem because it's earning that affection as opposed to giving it for no reason. Number 2, it increases the dog's respect for you as an authority figure because it no longer can tell you, it has to ask and prepay through a currency of obedience. And number 3, it helps him practice sitting and laying down. Don't ask him for a shake. Sit and lay down are the only 2 things you should do. If he's sitting here, you can ask him to lay down or come and sit over here. He just has to do something to change his state, but don't do a shake or paw. That really confuses them. So that's petting with a purpose. Passive training is just waiting for the dog to organically offer you the behavior you want without any influence. So every time the dog comes to me, I'm going to pet him and say come. Every time he sits, I'm going to pet him and say sit. Every time he lays down, I'm going to pet him and say crash. So you're just waiting for the dog to do it, and when a dog does it, you recognize it. I usually say testify is my funny word, saying testify, the dog just did something. You just look at the dog, if he's standing, you pet him and say come. If he's sitting, you pet him and say sit. You just narrate whatever he's doing. So passive training, I taught my dog to eat this way. So every time he takes his first bite of food, you say lasagna or meatball, as we talked about earlier. So when I hear meatball, there's food in my mouth, and that must mean I get to go eat. If he brings you a toy, name all your toys. All balls can be balls, all bones can be bones. But if he brings you a little elephant, call it Trump. If he brings you a little ladder, call it, fireman, or whatever it is. Come up with a funny name for everything. Speaking of names, I'd like the guardians to come up with a list of the official command words. Most of us don't realize that dogs don't speak English. People laugh when I tell them that, but they don't act like they actually recognize that that's the case. Come here, come, or come here, over here boy, dog's name. We come up with all these versions of calling our dog to come to us. Well, if you speak English, they all mean the same. If you don't speak English, come here, come here, over here. All those are different words. We say between 2,000 and 11,000 words a day as humans. The more words we use, the harder it is for dogs. Also, when it comes to dogs, they hear the first word that we say the most. So if we say good sit, we're putting the important word in the least important position. So make a list of the official command words. If somebody says, come here, you're like, vocabulary, like, thank you, come. And it just makes it easier for the dog to understand what's going on. Let me think. I think that's pretty much, is there anything else you want me to cover in this? The videos above, I'd like you to practice. If I forget to post the video about the jumping of the door, message me and I will add it in a link in the text of this write-up. And I'd like you to practice that. Try to have a neighbor come by once a day for like 14 days in a row. And you practice that, and if the daughter's actually filming this, if you come, call ahead of time. Set it up. So, Dad, I'm going to have you put the dog on a leash and step on the leash, and we'll practice the door thing. And the great thing about it, it's a form of operant conditioning. So the dog learns to being calm, gets attention, jumping and being excited gets me no attention. I'm trying to think. I think that's about it. These are the treats we like to use. These are Tricky Trainer chicken liver. These are, they have almost no preservatives. So what I do, yeah, I thought you might hear that. Come, passive training. Oh, that was a little bit of an influence. Let's come up here, buddy. Come on. Come on. There we go. Sit. Sit. Remember to use that hand motion too. So arc it over his head. As soon as he sits, lower it. Let him lick it off your hand. Say sit or whatever the command word is, and pet him under his chin. The reason these work so well, they have almost no preservatives. So if you leave the bag open like this, will be hard as M&Ms in like about 10 minutes. So instead, fold it over each time you open it. Zip it shut. Don't have any air in the bag. And keep it like this. It'll last a lot longer. You can get these on Amazon and Chewy. But I've gone through about 4,000 dogs. They're amazing. What did you think? Did you have a good time? Kisses. There's some passive training. So every time he does that, say kisses or smoochies, whatever you want to say. And so now we create a command word and we put it in context. Well, this handsome fellow is Yogi, and this is Yogi's roadmap. This is Yogi's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.